G'day and welcome back to part 2 of the GMC door reconstruction. So what you can see in the background, other than toxic, is the door. So I've got it finished, but you'll have to watch part 3 to see how it comes up and how I got there. But I hope you enjoy the content in this particular episode to see how we get to the stage that we get to by the end of this video. So enjoy, follow along, and we'll see you at the end of the video. I quite literally got the sheet metal, held it on this and beat it with a hammer along the length, kept sliding it along and literally just formed it over the top of that old piece of railway track, which was a great anvil. That's how I did that. It was nothing more complicated than that. And in fact, this is some little pieces that I cut off, not really focusing. I cut those off these parts here before bending it around the corners of the door. So let's go back to the door. So that flange that I was just referring to, it tucks in underneath the seam of the door like that. I've left it long through here because what I intend to do is go through with my angle grinder and cut this new piece to that lip there. And I've intentionally done it along that lip on the door because it's an easy place to weld to and then grind to create a curve rather than through the middle of a flat panel. Now this flange here, as I said, I left the metal longer. This flange here, I just worked out where I needed it to be and then I bent it over, again just on a piece of steel, a piece of RSJ that I have in the garage. And I intentionally put that piece there because the piece behind it isn't very nice. So that piece will be replaced, whereas that along there is not too bad. There's a little bit of surface pitting, but it's okay. And then the corner here, let's go back a bit. I put clicos into the corners. So the clicos, which I've shown before and I'll show again in a moment, to hold it into place there so I can return it to the same spot each time. And I put them in here for the same reason. And then once I had it in place, then I just kept forming this just by bending it, literally getting it with my hands and bending it to this form and trying to pop it around the corner with some gentle taps from the hammer. So I'm going to put this cleco in. So that one's in there and this panel is now held in place. And if I go to the corner here, I'll push this down. There's a little bit of strain on it. So that holds in place there. Loading a cleco down there. And you can see what happens. I can put it back in place to the same place time and time again, which means that I can just keep removing it. As I can find the hole, I can keep removing it and putting it back to the same place that it came from to make fine adjustments, add pieces on, and so on. Now, what I won't be doing is trying, or what I haven't tried to do, is make the whole thing in one hit. This is enough shapes. Curve around here, flange there, this bend up here, this corner. That's a fair bit going on though. I shaped this corner here as well. This line through here, well actually in fact the top of it, this here is the line that goes around here and picks up over here. So that's where I'm going to be wanting to get that nice and sharp. I'm going to pie cut more out of here and I'll keep tapping them down until they're all on the same plane, and I'll keep taking it off and just sort of probably going to the back of this with a bolster or a chisel to sort of square the corner up somewhat. As I said, this piece will be cut off completely and it'll be butt welded along there, and I'll fabricate this part separately and then just weld in from here, come under here across here, so that'll be a separate piece, and I'll weld it onto this probably afterwards rather than beforehand. And same with this. What is the case with this is I'm going to need to replace some metal underneath here as well, because there's actually a hole under here. So that is a corner that's going to need to have some attention, and it's cracked just there. But it seems okay back to here. So I've sort of decided that that's where I'm going, across and up there. And at the end of the day, I'll bang these flanges back down once I got it all in place. I'll drill some holes through there, plug weld it, and it'll be alright. And then up here, along here, I'll do this as a separate piece. So I'll get all of this main part in, and then I'll go through and I'll replace probably along here, and I'll just have to beat this form over something that I find lying around in the garage, something of a similar shape, and I'll just create that form and beat it, and hopefully I'll tape that for you. And then, and before I weld anything together, I'm going to prime all inside as well. Now this is a bit of a dent in here. Before I weld this in, I'll just bang that dent out a bit of an overcut there, and it'll come up alright. So this door was ready for the bin this morning, and after this I think it'll be completely fit for purpose again. So that's good, and all it has been is a day of work, or sort of half a day, I guess a day of work for my son and I. Hasn't been a busy day really, and again, put a dollar value to that, and then say that it's father and son time working on a door, getting this project going. And all it's cost us is some metal, some welding wire, some gas, a couple of angle grinder blades. To me, that's a massive win. So I reckon that's enough for now, but we'll come back to this because we're still not finished. New day. So going to continue along with the base of this door. As I said, I'm happy with the way it's coming up. I suspect I'm going to run out of welding gas today, so if that happens, I'll have to go and do that. And I might actually buy some steel to start making the radiator support and everything for this, so we'll see. Maybe some more sheet metal as well. But I'll get started. I'll try and start finishing. I will start finishing this, is probably what I'm trying to say. Try and get a bit more shape into it. Start finishing this corner off. I'll cut this in along here, and yeah, I'll continue fabricating pieces for the corner, this corner and the other corner. So I'll set you guys up on a tripod, and we'll make a start. Because I'm making a curve out of this, I'm just relieving some metal from these parts, doing these pie cuts, and that way when the metal comes in towards each other, then it doesn't contact each other and interfere. So I'm going to hammer form this over the existing shape, but then I'll take it away to really fine tune the corner. So you can see I need to take a bit more metal out through here. You can see, because I've pie cut it, it's allowed this to fold down without interfering. So it's actually getting the shape around here quite well. There's still steel, old steel underneath here. So I'm not getting a sharp edge on it just here. But as I said, I can take that off and I can finesse that off the car, off the door, by using a cold chisel in the back and just squaring the corner up. I've just done a few more cuts there and tapped it down, and then I've also gone through and just cut through the metal that I'm going to be removing. I will be taking more of this out, but what I'm doing is I'm relieving the pressure from the back of it so that I can tap this down start conforming to the shape that I'm after. Now I'm basing this on the shape that was underneath there before. I'm not convinced that the door was exactly the right shape because it's had so many repairs, but that's what I'm running with. The door opened and closed before, so as long as I can get a door seal on it that works, then I'll be happy with that. So hopefully you can see there that this is coming down. I've got a curve coming around here, and then once I finesse it a bit, then I can go through and I can weld through there. I've just opened this up with a 1mm blade on my angle grinder, and that's just the perfect amount of opening to be able to get some penetration. It's a little bit wider through there, but that's okay. Just going to do this at little pieces at a time. Just a little weld, just to hold particular pieces together so that I can start conforming the shape a bit more. I look at this, I'm going to cut that open a little bit more before I start cutting, but I'll put you on time lapse again. So that's not finished. All I've done there is made the corner, made the curve, and ground the welds down so that when I go and shape it more, I haven't got little lumps to changing the shape. So I can lay this down on something flat. I can beat it out as I need to. I did sand the horizontal surface first, and then I came up on the vertical. It's not quite vertical, that surface, and joined there. And then I worried about the shape in the corner. I didn't try and do the shape first. I made it flat, and then just put some shape into this. And as I said, more work to do. There's still some spots and some burnouts and so on, but it's just a starting point for the next step. I've just put a Sharpie marker around the perimeter of the piece of steel that I've got at the moment, because just because I've got it this size and shape doesn't mean that's what I'm going to use. Just as a footnote, I was looking for my Coleco pliers thinking I'd gone crazy and misplaced them, because I was sure I had them. They'd fallen inside the door. Now this is probably welded to that just a little bit through those joints, but that'll come off okay. Sounded confident when I said that, didn't I? Maybe it's a little more welded than I thought. There we go. Okay, so I'll just have to reshape that a little bit. But we can see here, make sure you can see, we can see here the penetration that's come through, so I can clean that up. So if there's penetration through there, then you know that when you grind this off, then there's still some strength in there. Now I've just bent that a little bit, so what I'm going to do, just going to go and hit it, put it on a flat surface and hit it down, and I'll try and just square this corner up a bit as well. Now just a moment ago on the video I showed you that I sanded the back of this flat. Now the reason for that is that now that I can put this onto a flat surface like this, I haven't got the lumps of weld holding it up and misshaping it. So just flattening that out a bit, and I'm just going to carefully, just with a cold chisel, I'm just going to carefully try and square this corner up without squaring it, just making it more square. I'm not trying to make it too defined, I'm just trying to square it up on the back. So it's barely noticeable, but it's just given it a little bit more definition through there. Haven't changed the shape of what I just formed, that's because I've got it welded there, but I have just sort of squared it up a little bit. So I can pop this back on the car now, or on the door now, to continue along. On closer inspection inside the door, I can now see that the bottom 50 or 60 mil, couple of inches, has actually been replaced. So it's been lapped over the top, and it's just below this body strip, which has got overspray all over it, which should have been a dead giveaway. So yeah, you can see it's been replaced. You can't see anything at the moment. Where are we? You can see it's been replaced. Let me zoom out a bit. It's been replaced along here. I'm not going to do anything about that at the moment. As it is at the moment, there's no rust bubbles showing through from underneath. It doesn't look terrible there. It has been lapped. It's not my preferred way to see something repaired. But again, just want to get this on the road. Now there is something oozing through over there. which is just there. So there's obviously a hole filled just down here with body filler. So we'll probably do something about that in this process. But just coming back to this, I've marked out where that panel was sitting. So I think that's a good place to cut in through here, replace the bottom of this. Again, may or may not get too involved in the outer skin now that I've seen that. This bracket, got to clean that up, make sure that I reattach that to the panel on the bottom. So I'll drill through my new panel, some spot welds, and spot weld it, plug weld it into there. This is part of the internal structure that goes right the way along the door there, that picks up the back of the hinges and so on. So I'm not sure if this is meant to be spot welded or not, but I'll do that, and I'll just run some weld on these pieces here. Not that it really matters. But all this stuff's going to come off, so this is where I cut a little while ago when I was forming that panel, that corner. So all of this stuff's going to come off. So that's where my pen mark is. So I'm pretty sure I don't necessarily need to go right the way back to that line. I could work through here. So I'll make a decision on that. I might do a bit of joining. I think that's been joined there, so we'll see. So yeah, I can make some decisions about what I'm going to take out. As I said, I will come through here, I'll come down here. That metal doesn't seem too bad. I will cut some pieces out of this through here, so a few little patches to go in there. But I'm not trying to make it out of one piece of metal. I will patch individual pieces onto the bigger piece. Through here, because that's got that dent there, I think I'm just going to come right the way through to my line, down through here, and across there. So I need to start removing this stuff here shortly. I'll start cutting some of this out. I won't cut right the way to the line just at the moment, but I'll relieve some of it so that my piece of metal can actually move into position better, because as it is at the moment, it's sitting on top of this metal, so it's pushed out a bit, so it's a little bit longer than what it needs to be. So I will clearance some of this that's pushing it out so that I can get my panel to sit in closer before I start fine-tuning and mucking around with these corners. yesterday, without trying to make too much noise, I just started making this piece of steel just to see, where are we? This piece of steel, let's change this a bit. This piece of steel to try and patch into this corner. And then I realised after a little while that there was no point me trying to do that until I hacked this corner out. So off camera I've just taken a little bit more out of here. I decided just to cut the folded over flange off here and I'll just re-weld it. I've been trying to avoid doing that wherever possible so that when I put this back together, if I'm careful, I won't burn the paint and won't have to do too much on the back here. But because of this, I've decided that this corner it's going to end up in undercoat on the outside here anyway. So I'm not going to muck around with it too much, as in I'm just going to bite the bullet and do what I need to. So I'm going to replace this back to here. I'll be honest, it probably needs to be taken back a bit further, but there's a trim under there and I can tell that there's other work that has been done there, and I can just keep going forever. So I'm going to repair this obvious stuff, and so I'll cut this out through here, I'll replace this corner through here, do the best I can. But what I'm going to do in the first place is make up a piece of steel that rolls up there to follow this and comes out to here, so that it can be the piece that I pop in there. And then once I've got this inner door skin made, then I'll concentrate on making the outer bit. And when I make the outer bit, I'll probably bend the flange so that I can fit it all back in place. So I'll get this to exactly the shape it needs to be, to what's remaining, and then I'll do the outer. If I cut both off, I won't know what shape it was before. So I'll make this part, get it exactly as I need it to, fabricate all this piece, like join this to this, make it one piece, have it all so it's ready to go, probably even put it in, and then I'll make this corner through here. So I'm going to go over and cut out a larger piece of steel, put some shape into it, then I'll come back and we'll work through that. Cut a piece of steel there, gave it a bit of a clean up. I'm just going to approximately mark the shape of the curve here. I'm not going to get too busy with it, because what I need to do is bend a curve into this edge of it here. So I just want to get a bit of a shape, and I've cut this oversized so that I don't run out of metal. So I'll just start off by trying to get the shape right. Okay, so one of those 15 lines just there. I'm going to go through, here's the outside of this. So I'm going to go through and I'll trim on the outside of this. A bit hard to mark that part out there. Again, just roughly, so I'll go away and do that. Okay, a little bit of backwards and forwardsing, and I've got this here. I haven't made this too pretty because I'm actually going to shape the curve into it, so I'm going to try and do that so that the curve part comes up longer than it needs to be, so that I can then cut it to length to match in with this. But I've got a shape, so it's going to be interesting because I've got to put a curve in it, but it also goes around a curve, so it's going to want to distort this steel a fair bit. So I'm going to have to, use a hammer on a piece of steel and just keep beating that shape into it as best I can. It'll be a bit of a trial and error thing. So let's see how I go, hey? But what I've done, I've marked this piece of steel with roughly the shape that I want to put that curve in, and it needs to be shorter here than it does here, but I'm going to overbend it anyway. So I'm going to try to make more of a curve, more length in that curve than what I need. So I'm going to put this over this dolly, and then I'm going to manually beat that shape into it. So let's see how I go. Might put you on time lapse though. Okay, so on the camera it showed me that was 2.5 minutes. So I've got this shape coming into it so far. It's not finessed, I haven't even put it on the door yet. So let's have a look, see if it's even close. Okay, so it's not there yet, but the shape's getting there. So it doesn't need to be as deep through here, I know that, because if we're looking here, how can I show you this? That's about the base of it, just there. So it goes down there. So I need more of a roll down that area than I do this area. But again, I can cut anything off that I don't need. I'm not worried about the outer shape at the moment because the steel is bigger than it needs to be. So once I've got it, I'll cut it down to the size that I want it. Intentionally, that's why I intentionally made it bigger. So what I can see is that as it is at the moment, where are we? As it is at the moment, it's quite a gentle curve. I need to make it sharper to match in with this. This is actually quite sharp in this area here, and then it rolled out to a more gentle curve through here. So I'll make it sharper down at this point here. Happy with it though? So I'm going to say through this part here, I want to make it sharper, and then I'll just let it sort of peter out to this same sort of curve that we've got around here, which is less than a 90 but sharper than what it is at the moment. I'm happy with that. We've got to go away, keep smashing on that. So you saw me put some more shape into this. Let's see how it looks. I'm happy with it around here, around this part here. I need to, what do I need to do? I need to move the angle over there and sharpen it up. So I think what I need to do is sort of sharpen that corner through there. So I'm going to use a different dolly. I'm going to use, I might use this one. Where are we? This one, which is a much smaller profile. I could actually get that in place and belt that in there if I wanted to, but I'll take it away and I'm going to try. I think even this is too sharp, so I'll start off with this, too round I mean. I'll start off with this, but then I'll use something sharper because that is quite sharp where it's joining there. So let's see. Getting closer. It's been a bit of work. This part down here, that sharp part, really fought me, to be honest. I've ended up with a gap just in here that's a bit wider than desirable, but I'm thinking that when I actually cut through here, if I cut through here with an angle grinder, I'll be able to relieve this, get that to bring up a little bit, and we'll close that gap up. I'll bring you in closer so you can see. So you can see here, as I said, this part down here is the part that fought me the most. So I've actually taken this off, gotten quite brutal with it, and I was using a mixture of ball peen hammers and cold chisels and so on. Whatever worked. I don't think there's anything right or wrong, any right or wrong way to do it. And I did end up using my standout here because I can just go from there to there and so on. I'm happy with the way this has come up. I think it carries the curve well. This part here, I think I'm cutting my steel short, so I don't think I really need to worry about spending more time on this, spending more time on getting this in, but I'll just double check that. But I think under here, so it's sitting up high, but that's because there's still more skin, more layers to come in, but I will be able to get some shape in that and pull it down. I might need to, the door looks like it's got a bit of a curve through there, so I might need to just build a bit of curve in through here so that I'm not trying to change the shape of the door unnecessarily. So what I'll do, I'll take it off and I'll actually just belt some shape into this, and I'll show you that. The steel is bigger and longer than it needs to be, which is good, but I'm happy with that. I think once it's all welded together, it'll be hard to tell that it's been done. Let's hope. I'm just going to put a couple of little tack welds on here, just in a couple of spots, because I want to remove these clecos, and when I remove the clecos it wants to spring out a little bit, so I'll put those there just to hold it in place. Then I'm going to go through and cut around here, and I'm actually going to start tacking this together. So I'm going to start forming this piece so that I can take it off and do some more welding on it. Now this is still springing up here a little bit, but I'm happy with it. I think it's going okay. Well, that was quick and easy. It took about 4 blows with a hammer, with a mallet. It wasn't this one specifically, but it was one the same as this. So a nylon hammer. So all I did, I wanted this edge to come down to the metal. So I didn't hit it here because that would have sprung it up. So what I did, I went over and I just hit it there a couple of times, like literally 2 times, and that put a little bit of a depression. Hopefully you can see this. Put a little bit of a depression in there, which brought this metal this way, which is what I wanted. And it just closed up the gap under here. You'll have to take my word for it. And yeah, that sits quite nicely. So I am going to clamp that in place, start cutting, putting some tack welds, start cutting and tacking it together. all I've done there is just tacked it in a few spots, making sure that it's nice and flush so that I don't have a joint there. So when I go through, weld it and grind it off and so on, it'll come up all right. I haven't welded this spot. The reason being is that this part here is a little bit flat. That's curved. So what I'm going to do, I'll take this panel off and I'm going to just hit this with the hammer a few times and shape it out to this here. So it'll close that gap up and it'll put some curve in here. This is following the curve that I want. This point shouldn't change. So just want to bring that together a bit more neatly. Over here, I'm pretty sure I only need to about here somewhere. So I haven't gone too far. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put some more shape into this on the bench now, and then I'll bring it back. So I've got the panel off now. So you can see this is what I was working on there. Nothing pretty about it. This is the side that I was working on, the side you saw me working on. And this is that flat spot that I was talking about. This is the inside, obviously. So what I'm going to do is I can now go through and I can see exactly where I want to join to. So I'll cut this new curved bit off there and I'll join this into here. I'll panel beat this out a little bit and I can just start finessing this up, and I'll probably get this corner somewhat finished and then pop it back in again. Well, thanks for watching along. I hope you enjoyed that content, and if you did, then hang around. Tomorrow or the next day, part 3 will come out, and you'll be able to see what the whole thing looks like finished. You've seen a snapshot in the background, and be able to see what the whole thing looks like. So I hope to see you next time. Thanks.